Hello, everyone. It is Friday, December 7th. This is Kops Office Hours. I am your facilitator, Justin Santa Barbara. I work at Google. We have an agenda. I've put it in the chat. It's in the calendar if anyone wants to follow along that is watching this recording on YouTube, which hopefully will happen. And please do put things into the agenda and if you want to discuss them, please put your name at the top so that we know who you are when we figure out who you are in terms of names and stuff. And otherwise, I suggest we dig right in. The first item on the agenda is from John Lee, who I do not see here unless you are using an alias, which is fine. But I have to review your PRs. I think I got through 2 of them, and I'm going to do the other 2 PRs on Image Builder. Image Builder is they are not unloved. They are just they're just further down the list. But anyway, I'm working for them. Image Builder is the thing which produces the cloud images which we use on AWS in particular. That you can always use a normal sort of a stock image as well. But they have some nice like preloading of Docker, for example. So yes, I did not succeed in getting through all of them before this meeting, but I made it halfway through. I guess if John shows up, we will see if there's anything else that needed covering. Otherwise, I suggest we keep going, which is the next item on the agenda is Aaron, who raised a very good point that etcd 3.2 changed or introduced a breaking change that requires peer certs to have the fully qualified domain name or IP address in their, anyway, it did a lot more validation of the client certs. It wasn't exactly clear why they introduced it, what problem they were trying to solve. I asked them to clarify, and they intend to clarify, but we have worked around it for now in Kops 1.11, which is, and we do that by setting up the names that we're going to use populating the names that we're going to use. We probably should be using a separate CA for the client certs entirely. I do suspect that's actually the right fix rather than the one they rolled out, but once we find out what they were trying to do, then we can figure that out. But it should be fixed. So you should be able to use etcd 3.2, and I think etcd 3.2 is going to be recommended. Well, it's certainly going to be recommended at some stage in the future. I'm not sure when it's going to be recommended.
So Justin, this is Aaron. Just wanted to call out and say thank you so much for checking that, getting it done. So you've already checked off my action item. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. And thank you so much for calling attention to that. Yeah, we just, I don't know. I wasn't aware of it, and I don't know why they changed it. And hopefully we can figure it out with that team and with the etcd team and come to a better solution for everyone, because it's a little odd and it's not clear why it's happening exactly. For people that don't know, I guess there was a Kubernetes CVE, so everyone should have updated to the latest 1.10 or 1.9 version. Well, the latest version of Kubernetes that you're running. It was backported to, I believe, 1.9, 1.10, 1.11, 1.12. I think it went to 1.9.
1.10 and up.
That's harsh.
Yeah.
1.10, 1.11, 1.12, and I think 1.13.0 had it in it already because of the timing. So yes, so you do have to go to 1.10. We are less affected on Kops because we, by default, have always used, I'm not sure you have a choice. But anyway, we've turned off anonymous access to the API server. So it only affects you if you are able to authenticate to the API server. But there is still an attack whereby you can sort of privilege escalate. So any user can do the attack and try to escalate to higher privileges. I'm not sure it's our only such thing in Kops, and I think that gets onto like one of the roadmap items we have, which is like in general, like certainly in the early days, Kubernetes 1.0 was not safe for a mixture of users with different privileges. We are closer to that. We aren't necessarily there in Kops. I don't think we're necessarily there in Kubernetes either, but I put on the roadmap that we should maybe we should aim for that as being a goal. But we can talk about that in a minute. The other item is Kops 1.11 is still, we dropped Kops 1.11 beta 1. We have not released it, and I am holding. I think we should wait until this particular PR lands into Kubernetes. We've talked in the past about how we do when the Kops release comes out, that it should be an indication that we believe it to be stable in production. And this one is an issue where, with fairly low probability, some of your nodes will stop reporting their addresses and will stop. So exec and logs and proxy and probably other things will break to those nodes. So it's an important fix, and it's going into 1.11.6, which I think is certainly landing before the end of the year. So if we do Kops 1.11.0 at that time, that will be sort of in keeping with our wait until it's really ready type thing. But it is a weird situation because we are well behind at this point, which again brings us on to a future topic. But I don't know if anyone had any comments or thoughts about either one of those two things.
I guess I would only say, does that only affect 1.11 and up, that bug?
So it was introduced in 1.11. It was fixed in 1.12. The thing that we're waiting for is the cherry 1.12 and later. The thing that we're waiting for is the cherry pick of that 1.12 fix into the 1.11 branch, which will be in 1.11.6.
Got it.
So it's broken from 1.11.0 to 1.11.5.
But that kind of brings up your further point of maybe we start on 1.12 because that already has it.
Exactly. So that's the real annoying thing. Like, had we just had 1.12, we could be like, yes, we might have. Had we had 1.12, we could say just go to 1.12. It would be very weird to have 1.12 released before 1.11, but I guess that is the natural implication of our strategy that if 1.12 is more stable than 1.11, which we would hope it would be, that we might never release a 1.11 release, for example.
I'll let you know by the end of the day how 1.12 goes with Kops 1.11, because that's what I'm doing right now. Okay, good.
I mean, we test it, right? So we test it, but yes, it's certainly the branch that we have cut the 1.11 branch. We have released the beta. I think anything that we go from now on, the plan is that it would be cherry picked into the 1.11 branch. So we are effectively master should be 1.12. So if you're building from master, that should become Kops 1.12. I don't know whether it's ready yet, but we can talk in a minute about whether we go with all the alphas right now.
Is there any reason to either cut another beta, or this is weird, we haven't done this one before, but maybe cut an RC that's like, with a note on it that says we don't recommend upgrading to 1.12 with this or 1.11 Kubernetes 1.11. This is Kops 1.11, but we don't recommend 1.11 Kubernetes quite yet. I don't know. Just trying to make sure there's proper visibility out there. That's all.
We could try to do that. I should at least put a note on why we're holding on the beta, right, on the GitHub release page.
I agree. Yeah.
I'll write down that down. Yeah, I'd almost rather continue with the 1.12 alphas and do those instead. But
me too. I was more just throwing out the idea if anyone jumped on it and said we really would love that, but by all means, let's just keep going with 1.12.
Justin, this is sort of related, and I've got it later on the list. But what's the status of being able to upgrade etcd with Calico and getting from the V2s on up with etcd manager?
I have to do the doc. So we have a path to go from that from the Calico to etcd3 with Flannel, Canal, or Copio, and I think probably all of them basically, other than Calico. I don't know to what extent Calico Inc. is pushing Calico networking versus Canal versus Flannel. I need to figure that out. I'm hoping that putting out the doc and pinging them will encourage them to make their position more clear, because it is frustrating, right? There isn't a great path, as far as I can tell, to go from Calico 2 with etcd to Calico 3. Full stop. Which is a little bit frustrating for us because we would like to let users do that. So we can find out whether the reason is, I don't know. There is a path forwards, which is like to adopt Canal, which is still like Calico network policy and Flannel. I guess the question is like, what is Calico's goal here, right? Do they actually want people to switch to Flannel, or do they Calico 3 for networking rather than network policy? Do you know if you need to use Calico for networking for any reason? Is there some functionality or feature of Calico networking that you prefer, Ryan?
No, I mean, we could look at moving. There's probably nothing stopping us from moving to Flannel or, switching out. We just built off of Calico originally, and
yeah, that's fair.
Familiar with it at this point. So
yeah, better the devil you know, right?
Yep.
I think I will write up the doc, which is like, here is how to get off of Calico because no one chooses Calico, and then we'll see what Calico says, right? Hopefully Calico says, actually, you can just do this to get onto Calico.
Okay.
Calico v3. I've been promising that for a while. I'm sorry I haven't done it yet.
That's okay.
Okay, that's cool, because that was actually the last item on the agenda before the road, or other than the roadmap, and the roadmap could be a bigger one. I'm going to move that up in the agenda just so that everyone keeps track that's following along. And then I don't know if there's any other items we want to talk about, but otherwise I thought this would be a great time to talk about the roadmap, given we're about to go into KubeCon and sort of in limbo on the 1.11 release. So I don't know if anyone has anything else or whether we should dive into the roadmap and I can talk about some of the things I would like to work on over the next year. I feel like the last year has mostly been etcd migration. For me personally, which is frustrating, but there we go. Hopefully once we get past that, we can actually do fun stuff. The list I had was CRD support. So I don't know if Jason is here, but Jason pointed out that like our Kops server was sort of in limbo or worse. And I think he's right. There's been a general move in the Kubernetes API machinery team, I guess, to favor CRDs over aggregated API servers. And so the goal is to make CRDs basically totally first-class citizens and on a par with an aggregated API server. There's still use cases for aggregated API servers, like if you want to map something that is not actually backed by etcd, so metric server, for example, where it's sort of virtual API server, but if we are doing objects, we probably should be doing CRDs, and they are much easier to work with. A lot of the generated code and complicated breaking code might go away, which would be great. There's one gotcha, which is, so if we move to CRDs, that will let us actually use Kubernetes. Well, it's very easy to use Kubernetes as a backing store instead of S3. And then also move to sort of start to support a controller model where Kops runs against a Kubernetes API server and on a Kubernetes API server, rather than having the logic run when you run Kops update. The gotcha is that we probably need to rename our API group from Kops to something like kops.k8s.io, which is annoying. We could probably try to change the rules, but the rule change wouldn't make it until Kubernetes 1.14. So it's not too bad, because I think what we can do is we can do some like string manipulation, accept the old format and the new format. All that will change is when you get it, you'll just see it. And then if you're using CRDs and you get it, you'll see it in the new format, kops.k8s.io / I think v1 alpha 1. I don't know if anyone had any points on that. I saw some people pop up with their videos. Hey. But no, okay, good. Well, we can keep going. The next one is very related, which is cluster API adoption. Cluster API seems to be making great progress and lets us effectively have a sort of standardized thing, which looks a little bit like instance groups. They call them machine deployments, or Kops instance groups are in cluster API. They're called machine deployments. It should be fairly straightforward to support nodes as opposed to masters. It's a little bit more up in the air as to whether or not how we would exactly support masters. There's a lot of sort of chicken and egg type bootstrapping issues, but we can certainly get it working for exposing instance groups via machine deployments, and that will give us much better integration with autoscaler. In theory, like I won't say a better rolling update, but at least a consistent rolling update across all the cloud providers out there. So in other words, if GKE moves to the machine deployment as well, we would expect the rolling update logic would be the same as on Kops if we're both using machine deployments. So that would be nice. Share that burden. I know we've had a couple of PRs, like Rodrigo, I think you sent a PR to improve rolling updates. I think Gambol sent one as well.
I think Campbell sent one.
It was only Gambol? All right, I thought there was more than one. Okay, Gambol sent at least one PR to improve running updates. But I think, yeah, if we adopt Machine API, we should be able to move that work into the cluster API where it can be like cloud independent. etcd ADM adoption is the next thing on my list. We should definitely get that fully baked in. We're calling it etcd ADM, but this is etcd Manager. It's combining with Platform 9's etcd ADM project. Platform 9's etcd ADM was sort of like kubeadm. It's like a CLI tool that you drive manually to manage etcd. A little bit an opinionated tool. And the idea is that we basically take the etcd Manager code, which drives that automatically and runs in sort of self-driving mode. And then should the self-driving not be able to make progress, you always have the option to use the raw CLI tools. So it should be a better combination by having the power user functionality underneath, but then 99% of the time it just works automatically and you don't have to touch it. But should you have to break glass, you have the CLI tool there, and it's the standard CLI tool. And this is a SIG cluster lifecycle Kubernetes SIGs project, so it should be used across all the tools. So a bit like Cluster API, all the tools should have the same experience. So that will be good. And then I'll touch GCE support next. I think we should do, or I want to do GCE support. It is a good one. Or I think we're very close. The only back blocker was whether we support IP aliases, which is sort of a networking mode, sort of similar to AWS's VPC CNI driver, like roughly. And I think we should get that in, and then we can sort of mark Kops GCE support like as stable, which I think will be great. And then 3, I feel like I'm doing a monologue here. I don't know if anyone else wants to say anything yet. Bundle support. This solves we have this thing called the bundle, which is basically another like non-Kops specific specification of the configuration of our components. So for example, this means that like today when there's a Calico update, we have to update the Kops binary. If we put that into a bundle, which is specified externally, then we're able to pull in that update without having to update the Kops binary. It also means that all the tooling that is out there in the cluster management lifecycle in the cluster management world should have the same, or can use the same bundle, which means that there shouldn't be a massive difference between like how Calico works on Kops versus how Calico works on kubeadm versus how Calico works on GKE versus AWS versus all of them. So it's sort of a like standardization approach. Bundle itself is just a format, but I do hope that when we start building out support for it, that everyone will adopt it. And then something I've personally been working on, which I'm now able to talk about, which is add-on operators. So we've talked a lot about how add-ons should work. The add-on, we have some functionality we have a very basic operator, I would say, in Protocube. And this is about making it a real operator so that you'll be able to see, for example, the status of Calico or kubedns or any of the add-ons that we run today. They'll be exposed as CRDs, and you'll be able to see sort of the health and status of them, the versions. In theory, you can drive, and we'll be able to drive updates in a more reliable way. So sometimes we've been a little bit cross our fingers about updates, and this will mean that we can like do an update and have opportunities to verify that the update is working as we expect, put in extra logic, like to do like migrations if we have to. So if Calico, for example, steps up and says, here's the script you have to run to move from Calico v2 to Calico v3, we can actually run that script via an add-on operator automatically. So we haven't had anywhere to do that to date. And that is what the operator idea would let us do. So that's something I'm going to be working on, and hopefully we'll see lots more of that. And then the two other items that I had is I think we should try to be more secure. I think we dodged a bullet on the recent CVE in that like our Kops configuration was more secure than others, but there are other tools, but there are plenty of areas where we are less secure than other tools. And so this time we might have looked good, but I don't think next time we might not be so lucky. And so I think someone posted a list of an Aqua security benchmarking tool, which has a great list of things that they recommend we change. And I think we should try to at least decide that we're going to do them or not going to do them. But we should try to be like basically secure by default, or as secure as is possible by default. In the past, we've really worried about breaking people, which we still have to worry about, but I feel like we should try to push people towards secure configurations as much as we can. And I know everyone has tried a lot, and I appreciate everyone's efforts. But yeah, we should definitely, I think we're close to being able to achieve that. So I think that would be a good one to do.
Do you happen to have this list somewhere?
Yep, I will paste the link. Good call, thank you. It's sort of the person ran a security scan against a Kops cluster. And let's see. Sorry. 6150, I will paste the link in. Good starting point. It's actually a really interesting list. Like you can, so like they have anonymous auth being set to false, which we pass, but most other people would fail. And they have a lot of ones where I think we know that we need to do better, like kubelet authentication, which I think is actually fixed now in 1.11. Thank you to whoever did that. I think the interesting one is like there are a bunch of ones which are very questionable, much more debatable. Like for example, always pull image was the one I like brought up as a topic for discussion. Always pull images because it's a fairly niche attack that it exposes, and it has a pretty big cost in terms of the consequences of it. Makes your Docker registry or your container registry much more important to be 100% available. So definite trade-off on that one. It's not a pure win, but I think it's a great list to work from and to think about. Like, do we want these to be do we want to be 100% passing or have a list of like where we're not 100% passing, like why we chose not to enable them? I think a lot of people have sent PRs to attack pieces of it, and I think if anyone wants to do this, like pick one of them at a time, because it is tricky to do the trade-off analysis. But I think we can be as secure as any other Kubernetes cluster, which I think is a good thing to aim for. And ideally as secure as it is possible to be. And then the final thing I had was about, well, we definitely want to have more automated releases and more timely releases. And it seems like a great time to do 1.12 alpha 1. The question is that I think we previously discussed and said I probably should have done that already. I think the question is, do we do 1.13 alpha 1 at the same time? And even more crazy, do we do 1.14 alpha 1 at the same time? And will that just cause even more confusion for people, or will it actually help people like test with the right version, for example? I don't know how people feel about the idea of 112, 113, and 114 alphas all landing on the same weekend just before KubeCon. Yes.
Yes, go for it.
Okay.
Is that all automated now, Justin? Is there anything still outstanding, or?
So there's basically the process is written up in docs devel release, and it's basically run a script. It is not pushed to branch and it appears, which is what I would like to happen. Maybe having to do 3 releases will motivate me to do that.
Or if you want to hack on it next week, some of us
yes,
might be around.
Yeah,
that would be awesome.
I'm up for that.
I'll be there.
So what?
We should try to figure out a time where we can grab lunch or meet up or something like that. I think that would be fun as well. I don't think we have a formal deep dive at the next thing. I think there's a lot of the sort of cross-project tools like Cluster API, for example, is there. And I think those are interesting ones to work on. And I think a lot of the stuff we have in Kops we can bring over to that, which is sort of what I'm trying to do. Yeah, it'd be great to meet up more informally, I guess. I guess we can talk in Slack or, yeah, I think Slack is probably the way to go. I know it's often hard to predict how KubeCon is going to go in terms of everyone running around to different places. So, but I will try to do 112, 113, and 114 alpha ones. And I imagine it will cause confusion, but I think that it will at least help us get onto the path we want to be on.
Question, since we're on the topic of 113, how is the etcd upgrade now that we have etcd manager? Is that fully automated? How is that working currently? I'm testing 112, but I'm already on etcd 3, so I don't have to worry about it, but people have been asking about it. So
yes, it should be fully automated. I think the TLS still has to go in, and Calico is an issue. Figuring that out because we don't want Calico 3 talking to etcd. I guess from that point of view, I guess Cilium is going to have the same problem, which is going to be interesting. I don't know what Cilium are going to do come 113. Cilium also talks direct to etcd. I think they are aware of the issue. And then the issue about rolling updates, where sometimes sometimes a rolling update will need to be kicked off again. I might leave that as a release note, to be honest. I'll see if it's possible to fix, but it's a little, I think the only way to fix it involves making sure that your Kops CLI tool is able to reach into your clusters, which I'm not sure is a great idea to require, but I don't know. I'll have a look at it and see. But those are the 3 items. A single node not running Calico, not running etcd TLS should upgrade without any problem at all.
perfect. Thank you, Justin.
And any bugs on that, let me know. And certainly TLS is the big one, right? Because I imagine a lot of people out there are running with etcd TLS, and that one needs to be supported. What do other people want to work on or want to see happen in the next year in Kops land or in Kubernetes land that has some relevance to Kops, I guess?
Mostly it's just minor things. I need to make it so that Kops can create clusters without generating SSH keys. Because it just wants to do that now, as well as have a way of not having some of our tags propagate. Because that messes some of reconciliation up. But we'll work on that.
Yeah, I have some similar stuff like that. I haven't gotten time to think about it, but that's what I'm dedicating my next week to, is really thinking through a lot of that stuff. But I want to, we need to do more cost tags for my team. We tag most things, but not every little thing that I wanted to. And I would love, I think we already talked about it, but the release process, just so that it's not always on Justin to every Friday every other Friday panic to to start pulling this stuff together, just so it's not all on his shoulders. Some of that stuff, and yeah, some of the security stuff I think would be really great. That I seeing this week what happened, and seeing that unknown some cloud providers that I won't mention didn't patch it even until Tuesday. It shows that this is a big deal. So those are my thoughts.
That's great. Yeah, I think the SSH key shouldn't be too hard. I think I don't think we use SSH key. I think we just set it up because most people want it. So we just need to find a way. I thought there was even a PR.
I haven't had time to dig into it.
Yeah, I think there might be an open PR. So have a look before you code it. Do a search on that, and then. But yeah, tagging is always tricky. I think one of the nice things about cluster API might be possible to get away from a lot of the tagging we've been doing to date, if you're willing to have a management cluster. So if you're willing to, if we go to this idea of what we've been calling Kops server, but is the idea that you have these objects represented in a Kubernetes cluster somewhere. So it's not going to be every configuration, but if you do that, we are able to find objects. We're able to write back the IDs of objects rather than finding them by tags. It's a little leaky, but I mean, so tags are a little bit better in that regard. But maybe we could have a look at that.
Yeah, for me, it's mostly the name tag that we mess with. All the other tags are fine, and I can propagate them. However, we're very specific about the name tag, and I don't think we actually use it any longer.
Yeah, I think the name tag might be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the name tag. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so actually my wish is to have this kind of controller mode for Kops. Because like I find it a bit scary. So I try to implement it kind of my way, but it works. But I'm not so confident of running it all the time or anything. But yeah, so with the previous project I worked on, we used to have this, let's say, operator, things were not called operator back then, so it was not an operator, but I guess we could call it operator. That would update the cluster, and it could run inside a cluster and upgrade the cluster itself where it was running, which is not too complicated. At some point it will stop running, and when it will start again eventually on another node, it will just pick up from where it left. So, and even if it starts like, I don't know, lots of times, it will keep working. And it's not too fancy. It was essentially, I mean, a cluster, if you think about it, in our case, most of the things were just inside the user data. So once you update that stuff, we were doing the CloudFormation, things would just go on. I understand the Kops works a little bit differently, but it shouldn't be that complicated to do anyways. Yeah, but I would love to. So let's put it this way: I broke a cluster with a wrong environment variable, and I don't want to do this again. And I'm pretty sure everybody here is laughing did it as well.
I'm definitely, yes. That's the challenge, right? It's when everything works, it's great. But if something goes wrong, what do we do? And I guess in that regard, Kops is nice in that we have the CLI tool as our fallback. I'm very scared by the idea of just doing it inside the cluster. That seems very brave, but okay. We definitely have a something we haven't really dealt with because it's in the CLI tool is the fact that there will be no sanity check anymore. I guess like Kubernetes itself doesn't have a sanity check. It's not like you approve like creating a load balancer before it goes and does it. But it will certainly be we want to make sure etcd manager is doing those backups first before we start like letting you just go full crazy on deleting things in an automated way. But yeah, I think
it's not easy. There are some corner cases to consider and some things that might definitely go wrong. But there are approaches can also be taken. And again, it depends. There are multiple things that you can do. Like, I don't know, for the master is the complicated part, right? The workers are kind of easy. You can always, for example, create a new node group and add one node and then pause and wait for any sort of confirmation. You can do any possible things. But I think this kind of should be somehow a goal of Kops or whatever project might pick from the heritage of Kops somehow, because yeah, it's kind of, there is still too much manual things into the whole upgrades of clusters, and everybody automated in their own way, but nothing looks like fully done, at least for what I've seen out there around Kops.
I think you raise a good point, like about the heritage of Kops. Right? I think it would be a great success if we ensured that Kops was a very thin wrapper around like things that are generally maintained and standard. And I think a lot of the things that we've done in Kops are, I would say, best of breed. I'm sure other people would say that their own ones are best of breed, but like at least as good as the other ones. And so I think we have a lot to contribute to those projects. But I think that would be a great success if Kops ended up as just a thin wrapper around those other things that we basically contributed to. I think that would be great. And then, yeah, you also raised an interesting, like they weren't, the controller versus operator thing, they weren't always called. I think the operator thing was a great branding name, but I think it does obscure the fact that like controllers have been there since the start, and yeah, controllers are the way to go. And I'm starting to think of like even Kops as a controller that chose to use S3 as the backing store. And then finally, what we are seeing in the cluster API project is a number of people are using a management cluster to run the controller, and then it becomes much easier. So they have a Kubernetes cluster, run the controller on that, run the CRDs in that controller, and then you assume that one's always available, or like you have something else manages that one, and then it's easy to upgrade your cluster, and you always have that control plane available, or the management plane available. So you could use GKE or EKS or a Kops cluster that you create using the CLI tool to do that. And I think one of the things I'm trying to experiment with is to what extent can we get something like that with the cluster API tooling that we have today when you're running when you're just creating your first cluster? Like, can we make that more similar? And like Kops we've started using an abstraction that like makes the S3 bucket look like a normal client set, a normal Kubernetes API. And I don't know whether we can actually make, like, one of the ideas could be to bring up a local API server, like an ephemeral API server that we just copy everything from the S3 bucket into that, and then it is Kubernetes, and you always have the control plane when you're running you always have the management cluster when you're running Kops, but it disappears immediately afterwards, for example. Anyway, we should. I think there's a way to do that, and I don't think we would be on like Kops Island anymore. We would be helping and benefiting from everyone else's work as well.
I'm looking forward to more flexible rolling updates. And by that, I mean my rolling updates taking less than 3 hours. So.
Yes, I think there is a pause. By the way, I think there is a pause in there that is a little conservative. So if you would like, I think you could set your node intervals a little shorter. But yes, it would be great to get that. The drain at least takes a little while. So but yeah, the like a deployment. I don't know what it's called, but batch rolls, right? That would be great. And I think Surge, I think Gamble implemented it, but we haven't merged it because of the intention to do cluster API. But like Surge, if you allow the cluster to grow before it, or the group to grow before you shut them down, then you can do many more at once. Like in theory, you could just double the size and terminate them all, or terminate half of them, and then it would be near instant, or it would be much faster. It would be constant time. Any other cool ideas? Anyone? Any big picture things? Is everyone excited about KubeCon? Yay.
Yeah,
right.
Looking forward to it.
It'll be great to see everyone in person, or well, hopefully I'll see the others in Barcelona. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything else. Otherwise, that's all we have on our agenda for the day. So I'll do my going. All right. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the year and see some of you at KubeCon. And I think we are still scheduled to have one of these in 2 weeks. But that seems very, oh no, that should be fine. The 21st should be fine. But we will see. I don't expect it to be vastly attended. We can at least like talk about what happened at KubeCon, for example. All right. Thank you so much. See you in 2 weeks or sooner.
Thank you.